Hello there. This is 5 Minutes with KeRusso, and it's Monday. And if you're checking in on this channel, then you're here because of this this walk through Leviticus. Today, our walk through Leviticus runs us into the word atonement. Now, atonement is probably not a word that you use very much, may not even be part of your vocabulary. You know, words kind of cycle in and out. When I was younger, one of the words that we used all the time was cool. It was cool to be cool. It was uncool to be a square. There was a Peanuts character, Snoopy, who would pretend to be Joe Cool once in a while. And Joe Cool was just, well, he was just cool. All right. Um, Today, other words pop up, new words come into our language. Our daughter in college, our oldest daughter, Jenna, she comes home and she springs new words, new phrases on us. And her mom and I will ask, what's that mean? And she's like, man, everybody uses that word. Well, we don't use that word. Well, you probably don't use the word atonement very often. I don't know if it's ever popped up in a conversation. Well, maybe we need to use this word more. You tend to come across this word if you're in a worship service in a church building. A preacher might use it from time to time. You'll definitely run across it a lot in the Bible. If you're using a New International Version, you're going to come across it 117 times. You might think that because Jesus, we teach about him being our sacrifice of atonement, that because of that, we would run across this word a lot in the New Testament. But you're only going to come across it 5 times in the New Testament. Does that shock you? You're going to come across the rest of it in the Old Testament, and 56 of those times is going to be Leviticus. 11 times more than all of the New Testament. So there's something going on in Leviticus about atonement that you and I need to understand. Well, let's take a look at this word. It comes from 2 English words this word was coined in the 16th century. These 2 words, at and one-ment. And the idea is that you have 2 parties that are separated for some reason, and they need to come back together. And the process of coming back together was at one-ment or atonement. So you're going to read this over and over again in Leviticus. God and people have become separated, and they need to get back together. Well, how do you do that? And why were they even separated in the first place? Those are some pretty important questions when you read Leviticus. The very first time you're going to come across this word atonement is going to be right off the bat. Chapter 1, verse 4. Let me read it for you. You are to lay your hand on the head of the burnt offering, and it will be accepted on your behalf to make atonement for you. So the offerings, the sacrifices, were part of the process of becoming one with God again. All right, so we're learning a little bit about how you became one again, how atonement was made. But why did you need the sacrifices? Why did you need the offerings? Well, as you read through Leviticus, and again, I'm not going to be able to cover all this, that there's a chapter on atonement in that book I told you about that can tell you more. But here's 2 basic reasons. You need atonement because of sin, and you need atonement because of death. We understand sin. You do things you shouldn't do. You got to make things right with God. But you'll read about women who give birth needing atonement, or going through their monthly period needing atonement. Well, she wasn't sinning. Or a young man or a man having a nocturnal emission while he's sleeping, and he needed atonement. Well, he wasn't sinning. Or you'll read about a house who's not even alive needing atonement. A house with mold needed atonement. Or somebody sleeping at nighttime and somebody else in the house dies, and so they're in the same house and they need atonement. Well, what's going on with this? Well, all of these things have in common this concept of death. When blood has life, contains life, when blood spills and it dries up, life dies. Semen carries life in it. That's how conception brings about a new child. And when semen comes out of a man's body and it dries up, life dies. Mold or whatever, it's death. You see, our world has 2 things that make us unclean: sin and death. And when that happens, in order for us to live with God, we have to have atonement. Something has to happen for atonement so that we can be one with God again. The sacrifices and offerings in Leviticus speak about that. Jesus' death addresses that, not just for our sin, but also because we come into contact with death. So atonement, and when you understand Leviticus, or you understand it in Leviticus, it helps you see this fuller picture of why you need it. And it raises the question, how much do you want to be one with God? God has gone to great lengths so that you can be one with him. The sacrifices of the Old Testament, the sacrifice of Jesus. He called his people in Israel to be one with him. He calls you to be one with him. But how bad do you want that? Think about that as you read through Leviticus. Leave a comment if you want, or send an email at booksbykerusso@gmail.com. Thanks for checking in.